Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi ajma'in. Brother Ahsan, can you confirm that you are seeing my slides on the screen?
I can see it. This is Fahad.
Yeah, we can see you and your presentation very well.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, first and foremost, I congratulate all of you who have participated in the event today, the workshop today. Hopefully, it will be a good investment, as Brother Farhan has mentioned. And secondly, I also thank again Brother Farhan, who has been the lead in the project for the development of AAOIFI Code of Ethics. And I had a very good privilege to have a workshop with him. I learned a lot of things from Brother Farhan during an AAOIFI official workshop. It's my pleasure to conduct this session today, inshallah. So, and again, it's a fortunate day at TAIF, alhamdulillah, to conduct such live webinar for the first time. Okay, so without further ado, I will be proceeding with the presentation today, inshallah. So, as Brother Farhan mentioned, I think Brother Farhan has laid down the underpinning of why we should look into this webinar with such importance, and why AAOIFI Code of Ethics. I think he has raised some very important points, and it really makes my job easier, alhamdulillah. So I will proceed with the presentation. So first and foremost, this Code of Ethics, just for our understanding, it was developed for quite some time, and finally in December 2019 it was released, and the effective date is set as 1st January 2021, which is only a few months ahead. I think around only 2 months now, two and a half months, I would say. And it supersedes the existing 2 codes which AAOIFI previously developed under governance and ethics. So it will supersede those code of ethics. So we will be discussing more when we go into the details. So now, number one thing we have to understand is the scope of this code of ethics, right? So as Brother Farhan has mentioned, as Muslims, either it is mentioned officially as advised, recommended, or required. It doesn't really matter, because end of the day, this code of ethics is derived from the Sharia principles that we are bound to uphold in every aspect of our life. We believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that central belief, that central faith and aqidah bounds us to be ethical in all aspects of our life. Now, this code of ethics would just describe what actually ethics would mean in our personal and professional life, especially in the professional life as an IFP, Islamic Finance Practitioner, because this code of ethics would be primarily applicable on Islamic Finance Professional. And then what would be the violations, what would be the ideal scenarios, that would be the description. But at the end of the day, we all are bound to be ethical in all aspects of our life. This is not because of being an IFP, rather just because being a Muslim. However, in the code, according to the code, the scope of the code is applicable on all employees, directors, members of the Sharia board, right? Or any other stakeholders, or social finance institutions, Islamic social finance institutions, for example, Waqf, Zakat, card-based microfinance institutions, AAOIFI Fellows, technical board and working groups, Islamic finance academics, trainers, service providers, consultants, Sharia auditors, and this list goes on, right? So even the auditors, in addition to this code, shall also comply with the ISBA Code of Ethics, and non-Muslim insofar as the code does not conflict with any of the established religious beliefs. So even non-Muslims, when working with Islamic finance industry, would be bound to apply implement those code in their professional life, unless it really conflicts with their religious beliefs. So that's that side apart. Other than that, all applications or implementations would be also applicable to them. So the scope is really broad, right? And for the authority, AAOIFI mentions in this code of ethics that in the event of a conflict between the requirements and provisions of this code of ethics with any other applicable code. For example, for auditors, there is a conflict with ISBA or any other code of ethics, or maybe the code of ethics in the institute level. So what we would see is that if the other code, which is conflicting with AAOIFI Code of Ethics, is less stringent in a given matter, or that contravenes or is inconsistent with the principles and rulings of Sharia, then AAOIFI Code of Ethics will always supersede. So meaning that the other code of ethics, if it is less stringent, and AAOIFI Code of Ethics is more stringent in a given matter, or the other code of ethics, and doesn't matter if it is stringent or less stringent, but it contravenes with the principles of Sharia. In both cases, AAOIFI Code of Ethics will supersede. Now, what does it mean? It means that in the event of non-compliance, the AAOIFI Fellows, especially those who have acquired certified Sharia advisor and auditor certificates, CSAA, or certified Islamic Professional Accountant, SIPA, they would be subject to disciplinary action by AAOIFI Education Board. Now, what are those? I will not go into details. You can check in the AAOIFI Code of Ethics, publicly available in AAOIFI's website. So that's the scope and authority of this code. Okay. Now let's dig into the actual code. First question is, why would we need a code of ethics, or what exactly is ethics? So there is a wonderful hadith which lays down the entire principle for ethics, which says, our Prophet ﷺ has mentioned, وَعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. So what it means is that our Prophet ﷺ said that I was sent to perfect good character, not only to uphold good character, but rather to utammima, to perfect it furthermore, right? And that good character is actually ethics. So in other words, ethics is the moral principles which guides towards what is right and what is wrong in terms of conduct. So ethics is the moral principle, but that would be translated into conduct, right? Our actions are what will determine if there was ethics or not. But we will be further explaining that part, inshallah. Now, what would be the principle to uphold ethics? This is something that we will be also discussing throughout the discussion, inshallah. But just to give you a quick foundation, to maintain ethics, there would be three principles. This is not mentioned in the code, but this is the general thing. Firstly, I mean, it is not mentioned as it is, but it is derived from the code itself. So firstly, of course, we have to pray. We have to always make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, we have to practice. We have to practice this code of ethics. The ideals, I will inshallah further discuss when it comes to the practices. And then lastly, we should try ourselves best to surround ourselves with best, I mean, in terms of characters, in terms of ethical values and morals, because this is what's suggested by our Prophet ﷺ as well. Now let's look into the objective of this code. The ultimate objective of this code is, of course, success in the hereafter. And in the dunya, in this world, of course, it will also enhance public confidence. As Brother Farhan was mentioned, the West have learned this after a lot of issues that happened. They found that there has been ethical issues in a lot of things. And there are studies and researches on the global financial crisis, for example, and many other crises, many other non-compliant things, that ethical issue is the fundamental issue or the basis of those issues. Now, so when we are adhering to a code of ethics, of course, in the industry level, it will enhance public confidence. The public will have more confidence into the industry. And then we will be achieving barakah as well in all that we are doing. It's not only about numbers. See, when we compute ROI, when we compute profit and loss, it's just numbers. But numbers, when it comes to Islamic belief system, numbers alone does not really make sense. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah that Allah wipes away riba and increases sadaqat, charity. In terms of number, it's the opposite. When there is a riba, there is an increase in the revenue, isn't it? When there is a sadaqah paid to an individual or an entity, there is a decrease in the number. However, Allah is saying the opposite. Allah is saying He increases the sadaqah, the charity, while He wipes out the riba portion. So that's the barakah part that we always need to look for. It's not only the numbers. We may see the numbers are inflating, but end of the day, there is no barakah in the personal level, in the entity level, in the industry level, and then the national and global level as well. And when it comes to personal objective, of course, the code's objective is to guide us to make ethical decisions and also become an ethical role model for my institution, for my colleagues, for my subordinates, and of course in the industry. Okay, some unique concepts that we would mention in an AAOIFI Code of Ethics. So one fundamental question pops in a lot of times. Why AAOIFI Code of Ethics? Why not, let's say we have for auditors, ISBA, we have CFA and a lot of other code of ethics. But why AAOIFI Code of Ethics? Why AAOIFI needed to come up with something like that? The fundamental difference I would mention is the basis of the code of ethics in this AAOIFI Code of Ethics, which I will be inshallah further explaining as well. As you will see, the belief system, the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the belief in akhirah, the belief in the hereafter, which creates an additional layer of accountability. We are under the CC camera, under the superview of our maybe bosses, but also whereby no one is seeing us, no one is watching us. The belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us every moment, whatever we are doing, nothing is hidden from his vision. Then that's what brings AAOIFI Code of Ethics in a different manner. So we will see as we go along with this webinar, inshallah, that the principles of Code of Ethics are extracted from the primary principles of Sharia, and that's what brings the uniqueness of this Code of Ethics. So we will see things, for example, backbiting, arrogance, I mean even internal things. So when we look at other Code of Ethics, it's more on the action. So it doesn't really consider what intention we have, what are the things going inside our heart. But when it comes to AAOIFI Code of Ethics, because it is extracted from the Sharia principles, so we'll see things are much more aligned with the intentions, much more aligned with the fear of sins, for example, or indulging in any sinful actions. So those are the things that makes AAOIFI Code of Ethics unique. And of course, the source, the divine source. When it comes to ethics, one interesting thing that I personally found it in other research as well, when I conducted another research, that when it comes to ethics, it's really difficult to define what is ethical and what is unethical, because people find good and bad subjective. So it is, let's say 100 years back, things that were considered good may be considered now as bad. 100 years back, things were considered bad, now may change in values and other things. But when the source of ethics is divine value, divine source, Al-Quran, Al-Kareem, As-Sunnah, this is where we will see the fundamental principles do not change. Maybe the applications may change because of the change in culture, change in society and all those things, but the fundamentals still stay the same. That's what makes it unique, the AAOIFI Code of Ethics, I would say. And finally, the comprehensiveness of this Code of Ethics, we will see that it also includes the intention, the mindset, which, as I mentioned, the other Code of Ethics, they are more focused on the actions, the conduct. They do not necessarily speak on the intention and the mindset we would have. Okay, so let's go into the structure. So I will spend some time on the structure and the paradigm, because that's the foundation of the Code of Ethics. Once we understand that, inshallah, what will happen is, later on, we will be appreciating the other parts of this Code of Ethics. So in this Code of Ethics, there will be two types of parts. One is operative part, meaning that which we will be always trying to implement, and the reward and punishment will be attached to it. So that is the violations, especially, which is para 1, violations, and the conceptual framework, which is para 1 of the code until para 57, which will include part A and B. Inshallah, we will see. And then there is non-operative part, meaning that if people do not abide by that, there will be no reward and punishment. I mean, reward can be always attached to it, but no punishment to it, no disciplinary action for that. It's just additional recommendation for that, right? So how it works, inshallah, let's see. First how Code of Ethics starts with is to answer what actually is ethics. Now, how would we define ethics, right? Previously, in one another slide, we said that it's a moral thing which helps us, which translates into good or bad conduct. So that's ethics. But now let's go to be a bit more specific. What exactly is ethics? So according to AAOIFI Code of Ethics, ethics is to uphold adl in all activities, in all everything that we do. And to maintain adl, we have to always try to achieve ihsan. If we are going below adl, then it will be a zulm. How does these three terms work together? Let us explain. So first, please note these two para. So the first para, which is para number 12 in Code of Ethics, it says that an IFP, an Islamic Finance Practitioner, shall achieve adl in all work activities at all times, failure of which will constitute as zulm. And to achieve and maintain adl, in the para 13 it mentions, on a continuing basis, an IFP should always target ihsan in all matters as a first step. Now let's get into a bit more about these three concepts. Now, adl is defined in para 10 as the concept of minimum benchmark of ethics, the conduct of which is mandatory. Okay, literally it means what is adl in a literal sense? Literally it means to put something or someone in its rightful place or position. Wad'u shay'i fi mahallihi. When we place something in its right position or its right manner, that's adl. We usually translate adl as justice or fair, right? And which can also include the meaning of justice, equity, fairness, or equilibrium. And ihsan, on the other hand, is a concept of striving for excellence. Ihsan is excellence, right? So excellence in ethics, which is highly recommended. Now, the term excellence means doing something in a manner which in given resources, constraints, and circumstances cannot be done better. I repeat, the term excellence will mean doing something in a manner that, let's say, you have some resources in your disposition. You have some constraints, and there are circumstances. With those three variables, you cannot do the thing in a better manner. That's ihsan. That is where we say this has been done in the best manner, because we have utilized the maximum resources we have in our disposal. We have considered all the constraints that we have incurred, and also we have taken into consideration the circumstance we are in. So given all those three variables, we have no other choice or no other option to do it better, in a better manner. So this is where we would say this has been done in an ihsan manner, or this has achieved the level of ihsan. If we are just upholding the right way to do this, that's adl. Now, what is zulm? Zulm is the absence of adl in any form. It's very straightforward. Wad'u shay'i fi ghayri mahallihi. So it's just the opposite of adl. Not doing the thing in the right manner or the proper manner. So that's zulm. So what it would mean? It would mean violation. It would mean transgression, injustice, oppression, tyranny, immorality, etc. So literally, it would mean what? Literally, it would mean to put someone or something in a place or condition which is not its correct state. So that's what I said. Wad'u shay'i fi ghayri mahalli. So we have to keep those three concepts in mind whenever we are going through the whole Code of Ethics. So let me summarize and repeat. Adl literally means to do something or put something in the right manner or proper manner. And what would mean in this Code of Ethics is that would be the minimum benchmark of ethics in every conduct that we do. Ihsan is the striving for excellence, right? In this Code of Ethics, what we would mean by ihsan is that given the resources, given the constraints and the circumstances, the act or conduct would not be possible to do in a better manner. So that is ihsan. And zulm is the absence of adl. When there is no adl, that means we are constituting a zulm. And what would mean in practical is to conduct a violation, to conduct a tyranny, and any sort of operation, either financial, personal. We will go through this, inshallah. Now, okay, I will come to this equation later on. Let me go through this one first. Yeah. So let's look into this diagram. So what it says is that you see here the area, the line of adl, okay. So this is the line where we are saying that when we are in this line, meaning that we are doing the thing in a right manner or proper manner. That's it. It can be interpreted as justice, fair, or whatever. Then if we are in the line above adl, that's ihsan. So that's where we are trying to achieve the thing or something in the best possible way, given the resources, constraints, and also the circumstances. But if we fall below adl, that is where zulm constitutes, meaning that the thing has been done in an unfair manner. It has not been done in a proper manner. It may be constituting either violation or operation or whatever we have said. So as an IFP, as an Islamic finance practitioner, in all circumstances, in all conducts, we have to at least stay in this line. But as we know, this is a thin line. This is a thin line. We may fall into zulm if we just want to achieve this. To achieve this one, we always need to look for the area of ihsan. So please visualize this thing. If we keep that in mind as always, this is where it will be very easy for us to achieve the area of adl, inshallah, and we will not be in violation of any clauses of this code of ethics. Okay, now let me go to the previous slide that I wanted to share. Okay, so now, so we said adl and ihsan. So end of the day, we have to remember just those two keywords. What is code of ethics? It's adl. To achieve adl, we need ihsan. And if we are unable to do adl or achieve adl, then it will be zulm. Those are the three keywords we have to remember for the entire code of ethics. Conclusion is we have to uphold adl and ihsan, if we want to say this in another manner. Now, AAOIFI Code of Ethics has done a wonderful job creating a formula for adl and ihsan. So this is what they call adl and ihsan equation. So this adl and ihsan equation is a combination of 4 principles. Number 1, having the right intention and the right mindset. So this first part of the equation is about our intention and mindset, right? Second thing is doing the right thing. So only intention is not enough. We also need to do the right thing. Third is doing the right thing in the right manner. So it's not only sufficient to do it in the to do the right thing. Rather, we also need to see the process. Let's say if someone has robbed, right? He is robbed, or he made a theft. Why? To give a charity to the poor. So to give the charity to the poor is the right thing, is a good thing. The intention is good. The mindset is always good as well. But the process, the manner is not right. So then it will not fall under the adl and ihsan equation. And lastly, engaging with others positively. So when we are doing a thing, we are doing it with the right intention, the right mindset, with in the right manner as well. We also would be going through engaging with different people, different stakeholders throughout the process. So as an IFP, as part of the
यहाँ अब आपके सामने ये स्लाइड्स आ रही होंगी. अदल और ihsan की इक्वेशन बनाई है, जिसके अंदर इन्होंने ये कहा है.
Brother Fahad, sorry, we are listening to your voice, I think. Okay, Brother Ihsan, can we continue? Is it all good?
Yes, sir. We can continue. It's all good.
Okay. Please. Okay. I think there was some interaction in between. Anyway, no problem. So what I was mentioning is that So what I was mentioning is that throughout the process, we will be meeting people. We will be conducting things with different colleagues, different stakeholders. So what we have to do is always engage with others positively. So this is also very important. This positivity. So let's say we are having the right intention, the right mindset, we are doing the right thing, we are doing in the right manner. but we are engaging with others negatively. That's not part of adl and ihsan.
Hello.
That will be violation as well. Yeah. Okay. Now, so this one we will be calling it the adl and ihsan equation. We will be calling it the ethical paradigm. So this slide will define, inshallah, the entire structure of AAOIFI Code of Ethics. So first is ethical paradigm, which we said it is combination of adl and ihsan, and then furthermore adl and ihsan equation is explained with these 4 principles. To achieve these 4 principles or 4 parts of the equation, we will be going through 4 ethical virtues, 6 ethical virtues, sorry. So for the right intention and right mindset, we will be requiring 2 virtues, taqwa and tawakkul. For doing the right thing, we will be going through sidq and amana, 2 virtues again. For doing the right thing in the right manner, we will be going through quwwa. And then finally, to engage with others positively, we will be having another virtue called tawasi bil haq. And for each of these part of the equation, which is, let's say, number 1, having the right intention and the right mindset. So how will we ensure that we are doing the right thing with the right intention and the right mindset? So this is where the code of ethics will be coming with a protocol, which is called self-accountability protocol. So the objective of this protocol is to ensure that we are doing with the right mindset. So this protocol will have steps. If we exercise that, we will be ensured that we are following the right intention and the right mindset. Then there will be liability avoiding protocol. What that protocol would mention is that, let's say, so we are supposed to do the right thing. Are we doing the right thing? Or let's say we have delegated things to our subordinates, and they have performed things in a manner that we also have to take responsibility. So what is when we can avoid our liability? So we are safe in terms of ethical practices. So this protocol will be discussing the flow chart or the steps that we have to ensure. Then doing the right thing in the right manner. So it's all about decision, right? How we are making our decisions. Are we doing the right thing in the right manner? How we are going through the different decision-making process. So this is where another protocol has been discussed, mentioned by AAOIFI. If we follow that decision-making protocol, we will be ensured that we have made the right thing, doing the right thing in the right manner. And finally, engaging with others positively. So when we are supposed to engage with others positively, we will see that there will be violations, for example, by our colleagues or some other bosses or something. So to engage with him positively, we may need to escalate the violation. What would be the process? What would be the way to escalate it to the higher department or the relevant department or the authority? So this is where AAOIFI will also come with a violation escalation protocol. So what happens is that this entire part, which is called the ethical paradigm, which includes the adl and ihsan equation, and then the virtues, and then the protocols. So this part would be called, whole thing would be under part A. Then in part B, there will be violations discussed for each of those virtues. So violations for taqwa, violations for tawakkul, violations for sidq and amana, violations for quwwa, violations for tawasi bil haq. So as an IFP, as I mentioned previously, the operative part of this code of ethics is basically part A and part B. So meaning that we will always have to ensure that this whole part A and part B is implemented and taken care of. Then part C is ideals, is recommendations. So let's say for taqwa, what is the best state? What is the level of ihsan we can achieve? In other words, we can say this part C is all about ihsan in tawakkul, ihsan in taqwa, ihsan in sidq and amana. So the objective of this part C is that when we make this as a habit for us, inshallah, we will not be anywhere near to the violations. And when we are nowhere near to the violations, we are by default upholding the code of ethics in our personal and professional life. So I took some time to explain this structure so that even if I am unable to finish this whole slides in my time, in my due time, still you can go back to the code of ethics that is published publicly available in AAOIFI's website, and inshallah you will see it's very clean and easy. Okay, so this one I already explained. Let me skip to the next part. Now I will do a quick touch on the protocols. As I already mentioned, there are 4 protocols discussed in AAOIFI Code of Ethics. The first one is under the having right intention and right mindset. So the question would be, how should an IFP respond to an unethical action of his own, either at the internal or the external level? So let's say there has been something, he has done an unethical action. So what would be the protocol that he should always maintain to purify himself? So that's what we call it, self-purification protocol. So we will see under that protocol, AAOIFI would give us a good exam, three exercises. Number 1 is we have to repent, meaning that we have to admit and sincerely regret for the violation. Next is rectify. So if it is only concerned with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, haqqullah, then we just repent and that's it. If it also concerns haqqul ibad, because in a financial institution, obviously there will be things haqqul ibad, either with the institution or maybe the staff, the subordinates, the colleagues, or maybe the stakeholders, the depositors, financiers, and shareholders. So we always have to rectify it. So if any rights was infringed, we have to make over it. And then finally, perform a good deed. So this, like whenever we have something done wrong, we should always have a practice of making a sadaqah. It's just like performing a good deed or an act of charity, so that we make over what we have done, right? So this is the first protocol that has been mentioned. Now the second protocol is under doing the right thing. As I mentioned, let's say an IFP is held accountable for the unethical actions of his subordinate, right? So how would we avoid such liability? So that the actions of our subordinates are not given, I mean, we are not responsible for those. So this is where AAOIFI would mention the protocol for liability avoidance. So the protocol would say, number 1, even before you have that challenge, always make sure that you are making ethically defensive decisions, and always do due diligence, so that when you are giving tasks to your subordinates, there are proper checks and balance, there are proper risk mitigation strategies and everything. So when we are doing that process, even though I mean our subordinates do something wrong, we will be avoiding the liability. So this is the liability avoiding protocol that AAOIFI has mentioned. I am going through those quickly because those are self-understood, and inshallah once we go back, we can check in the Code of Ethics and it will be self-explanatory as well. Now, if you remember, I mentioned there are 4 protocols. Number 3 is when it comes to decision making. So how would we ensure that we are making ethically compliant decisions? This is where this decision making protocol comes in. And if we see, the first part is we always have to ensure that we are adhering to the Adl and Ihsan equation. Meaning that we need to have the right intention and the mindset. We need to do the right thing in the right manner, and then engage with others positively. So this is the first step to ensure that the decision is correct or the decision is ethically compliant. So we always have to go through the first step. Then in the second step, we have to see what interest this decision is fulfilling. So there is a hierarchy of decision. First, we have to look at the public interest. So we have to put aside self-interest and look at what is the public interest for that decision. Then would be the Islamic finance profession that we are in. Then would be the customer. Then is the employer. And finally is the self-interest. So the self-interest should not come on the first place. We always need to put self-interest at the last place. If we follow this protocol, then there is the next step. We have to consult with experts. So if we are taking decisions and it's a major decision, we also need to consult with experts, because this consultation is actually also recommended by Sharia. Our Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Al-Quran Kareem, He mentioned, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Consult with them. Even to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned that consult with the companions. And then when you are firm in a decision, make the decision and وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Then you make the decision and make tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and move forward. So this consultation is important. And finally, research and document. So before a decision, look at the pros and cons. of that decision and document the thing that you have made. So when we are doing those things, we are avoiding the liability. So next time, let's say at some point we are made accountable that, see, you have made this unethical decision. So we always show that this is the process I have taken. I have ensured that I have the right intention, the right mindset. I did the right thing in the right manner, and also I engage with others positively. Next, I have put the hierarchy of interest. I have public interest on top, then my profession, then my customer, then my employer, and finally my self-interest. Then third is I have also consulted with experts, and finally I have researched about it as well. I have documented it. So when we do this regular habit, it may look like a lot of steps, right? But when we start practicing it, we will see it's very easy actually, and it's very efficient as well. Because later on, especially if we look at the last part, which is documentation, it is very, very important when it comes to important decisions. At some point, we may held liable for our decisions. So what was the basis? How was that decision made? So when we make this as a habit, we will see the barakah flowing in, inshallah. So this is the liability avoiding protocol. And then we have another protocol, which is violation escalation. I will not go into details for this. We can go through the code of ethics, or even we look into this slide later on, inshallah. But the summary of this is that when we want to escalate about a violation of a colleague or any other staff that we are watching it, we always need to make sure that we have proper evidences, we have performed due diligence, and we have taken all the extra caution, and we are objective. So we are not biased. We are just not creating any any misinformation or any agenda, anything against him, just to make him look bad. We will see later on this is a violation as well. So when we are looking at it from an objective perspective and we are following the process and then we are escalating the violation, so this is where we are following the proper protocol. If we are not following the proper protocol, so this is where we will see things are becoming unethical and maybe also conclude or constitute a violation later on. Okay, so now let's go to the virtues. So I mentioned previously that in the AAOIFI Code of Ethics, if you remember, the structure there has been, first is the ethical paradigm, then we have the ethical Adl and Ihsan equation. And from the Adl and Ihsan equation, we mentioned 4 principles: doing the right thing, having the proper mindset, and in the right manner on all those things. And from those 4 principles of the equation, we mentioned that there are 6 virtues which will allow us to uphold the 4 principles of the equation. Now, the 4 virtues was taqwa, tawakkul, sidq, amana, quwwa, tawasi bil haqq. I will not go into very much details, but just in a glimpse. Taqwa is defined as having consciousness and remembrance of Allah such that it results in his obedience, and in an event of disobedience, immediate repentance. This is very unique in AAOIFI Code of Ethics. We will not find it any other code of ethics. What it says is that in every manner we have to be conscious and remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching in all activities, and it has to translate in our conduct as well. It's not that we have that consciousness and it's not translating in our actions. And furthermore, if there is any violation, immediately we go back and repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And there is a hadith where Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that when a person repents, he's like a person who has no sins at all. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very forgiving, he's very merciful, he is Rahman, he is Rahim, he is always there to forgive us, inshallah. And then the second virtue is tawakkul. This tawakkul is mentioned, the definition is mentioned here is that always we have to trust Allah's will and decree and be content with the outcome after having optimally exhausted all available and accessible resources at hand, given the situational constraints, while striving for a stated desired goal. There are few very important keywords in this definition. So I will just highlight the keywords. Number 1, having optimally exhausted all available and accessible resources at hand. What are the resources that we have in hand? We have time, we have energy, we have money. So time is a very viable resource. Energy that we have, physical energy or mental, intellectual energy, that's an important resource as well. Then money. So when we are exhausting all the resources, We are taking into consideration the situational constraints, the barriers that we have in hand, and we are also striving for a stated desired goal. So those are the three components. When we are doing those three, we are also trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will and decree, and we are content, we are happy with whatever He has decided for the outcome. So this tawakkul does not mean we don't exhaust our resources. Tawakkul is not just a dependence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without utilizing the resources that we have in hand. Tawakkul is exhausting the resources and also then being happy, being content with the thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided for us. So what it means is that, if you remember, these two virtues are the requirement of the first part of the equation of Adal and Ihsan equation, and the part was having the right intention and the right mindset. So how we ensure that we have the right mindset is by ensuring that we have tawakkul. And tawakkul is that even though we are utilizing all the resources, the mindset says we will be content with whatever outcome we have, because we will not be having control over the outcome, but we have control over our intention, we have control over our actions. So that is where we are responsible for. But outcome is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As-sa'yu minna wal-idma min Allah. We only can try our best, and the completion is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we have this virtue of sidq or integrity. Sidq is defined as achieve consistency and persistence in, as well as harmony between beliefs, intentions, words, and actions, while upholding and promoting truth. In other words, sidq is the alignment of our intention and our action. So whatever we have here is translated in our words, right? There is a ayah verse in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Why are you saying things that you yourself do not do? So we should not be saying things that we don't believe or we don't have in heart. That's what hypocrisy is. So sidq is always having a consistency between the two, between our beliefs, intentions, and words and actions. So actions of our heart, actions of our mouth, our speech, and actions of our limbs, what we are doing or with conduct. That's sidq. We are always aligned. All right. Then number 4 is amana. Amana is defined as honor and fulfill the duties, powers, responsibilities associated with one's role, rank, and position and status, including safeguarding the resources given in one's command as trust. So there are few keywords. Why I'm emphasizing on this slide? Because those slides are the fundamentals of the violations that we will be having later on. So if we conceptualize those principles very much, inshallah, we will not be, conducting unethical behaviors, inshallah. So amana is defined as we will be honoring and fulfilling the duties, powers, responsibilities associated with our role, associated with our rank and position and status, and also safeguarding. This is very important. Safeguarding the resources given in our command as a trust. So let's say, as again I said, resources are time, energy, and money. So time, how are we utilizing the time? Are we utilizing the time that we have committed to our office or employer properly? Or we are just wasting our time? We are utilizing that time to provide service to someone else, some other entity. Then there is energy. How are we utilizing the energy? Are the energy properly utilized? Then we also have our subordinates. How we are, performing or safeguarding the resources. Then we will have money in our hand. We will have intellectual property, data. Today, when it comes to Islamic financial institutions, data is one of the most important resources. How we are safeguarding those resources? Is that data protected in our hands? Are we passing the data to some other third party? Right? It is very much common to sales and investment departments sometimes that data is always, or in most cases infringed or passed to a third party. Not only sales, by the way, it's many other departments also sometimes, indulge into it. So we have to be mindful about that. Then we have quwwa or strength. What is quwwa? Having on a continuing basis the intellectual, physical, and psychological and physical power, and capacity and capability at a level required for the fulfillment of a responsibility or execution of a task. So if I summarize, firstly, we have to see the important part that we have here is the fulfillment of a responsibility or execution of a task. Now, what do we require to fulfill responsibility or execution at a task? Of course, we will be needing resources, right? So this is where Amana comes in. But on a personal level, we have to always ensure on a continuing basis. So this is not one time. This is a lifetime journey until the end of our role and responsibility. Psychological and physical power, capacity, and capability we have. So we have to ensure that we are always continuing to increase our intellectual capacity to fulfill our role and responsibilities. So for example, the ones you have attending today's workshop or today's webinar, this is also part of Quwwa, because you are doing this, you are attending this. Why? To increase your intellectual capability. Then we have psychological as well, to always develop our psychological power to ensure that we are having proper mindset, we are happy, we are having proper attitude and behaviors and all those things. And finally, also physical. So we have to be physically fit. If we are not physically fit, if we are not concerned about health, if we are not taking care of our health issues, that's also a violation of Quwwa. Later on we will see, inshallah. And finally, the virtue is tawassi bil haqq, which is to encourage others to do good and avoid evil in a knowledgeable, positive, and prudent manner. So meaning that we will, this is the concept, exactly the concept of al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar. So meaning that whenever we are engaging with others, we always need to ensure that we are encouraging others to do good and avoid evil in a knowledgeable, positive, and prudent manner through the use of reasoning, influence, and authority. So it shouldn't be negative. If we are speaking with our subordinates, if we are communicating with our stakeholders, it always needs to be in a positive manner. So how and where it will be violation of this, and what would be the ideal way for this, this is where the code of ethics will be discussing in the next part, inshallah. So now next would be the violations. As I mentioned, in operative, the part of the code of ethics that we have here will be two types. One is operative and the other one is non-operative. The operative part is both part A and part B. So so far we have discussed part A, which includes the ethical paradigm, the Adl and Ihsan equation, the virtues, right? And then the second part, or part B, is the violations, which is the most detailed part in the code of ethics, because this is where the Adl comes in. So if we are doing a violation of this, that's zulm. If we are avoiding the violations of those, this is Adl. And then part C would be the ideals, which I mentioned, that would be the ihsan part, right? Now let's go very briefly. I will not be going very detailed in the violations, because alhamdulillah, once we have conceptualized the ethical paradigm, the Adl and Ihsan equation, the virtues, we will be having very easy way to go through the violations just with a peek or glance in the code of ethics, publicly available in AAOIFI's website, inshallah. So in general, in summary, the violations would be addressing management violations, cultural, transactional, personal, or impersonal violations. This is true for all the violations of taqwa, tawakkul, then we have sidq, amana, then we have quwwa and tawassi bil haqq. All the violations will be more or less in these 5 categories. So let's go very briefly to the violations of taqwa. Now, the violations of taqwa can be categorized into 3 subcategories. First is performing an ithm. Remember, what was taqwa? If you recall, taqwa is to have consciousness and remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever there is things that went wrong, to repent. That's it. That's taqwa. Now, what are the violations of taqwa? Number 1 is sin, performing a sin. The definition of this is willfully and intentionally performing acts that are considered sinful or that are forbidden by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Sharia. So someone, for example, let me give an example. Someone willfully doesn't attend salah at time. There is azan, there is iqama, he doesn't just perform salah willfully. Someone does just willfully drinks, okay, or maybe engages in non-halal activities, even though that is not considered part of his Islamic finance profession. It doesn't really matters with the Islamic finance profession. This is where, again, I said Code of Ethics is unique. AAOIFI Code of Ethics is unique than the other ones. So willfully conducting or performing sinful acts is considered violation of the taqwa. Then transgressing the limits of Sharia. Sharia has given you a permission, for example. Now transgressing that limits. For example, one example Brother Farhan gave in his workshop, and I really liked it. For example, is let's say a person is permitted. I mean, he has that scope to pray on time. I mean, of course, that should be the natural or the normal situation in any Islamic finance institution. But he is taking, I mean, after Zohar prayer, for example, Zohar prayer is part of his work time, and after he has been given, let's say, 1 hour for lunch and prayer break. And after prayer, every day he spends around more than 30 minutes to 1 hour, which is exceptionally considered higher for salah, for example, or for any ibadah, or for any recitation of Quran Kareem. It's a good thing, it's a permissible thing, but it's like transgressing the limits of Sharia. Because with that, we are also, compromising the commitment with the employer, and that is on a continual basis, on a consistency. So that's where it will be a violation. Then ghafla is being just unmindful of the remembrance of Allah. So whenever you see the boss is not there, we are, very easy, and it's becoming a habit to do things which are not permitted by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So that's what ghafla is. So those are the main three violations of taqwa. Then there are violations of tawakkul. The first violation is, if you remember what was tawakkul, I emphasized on the keyword that firstly we have to exhaust all the resources in hand, considering the constraints and also having the end objective. And then finally, when the results come in, we are content with the result. We are submitting to the wills of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Now the violation is if we are not following that mindset. Rather, we believe in that end justifies the means. So meaning that we haven't exhausted the resources, but we believe in, okay, we have achieved the good target or good outcome, so that's fine. That mantra, believing in that type of mantra, is violation of tawakkul. Then lack of perseverance. If you remember, then in tawakkul, we have to be consistent. We have to be consistent in exhausting our resources and depending on Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. If we just give up, if we just not have perseverance, that's also a violation of tawakkul. Then, of course, abuse of resources and being hopeless. Because when we become hopeless, what does it indicate? It indicates that we are not depending on Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Our job, as I mentioned, as-sa'yu minna wal itmam min Allah. Our job is to exhaust the resources, to use the resources in its best manner, and then leave the rest to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So that's what tawakkul's violations are. Then if we look at sidq and amana. Sidq and amana are the two main major parts of violations in AAOIFI Code of Ethics. So the text of these slides may be a bit smaller. Those who are looking from your smaller devices, I'm sorry for that. But I just want to be very brief on this because we don't want to spend a lot of time here. So if you remember, sidq was defined as a consistency, as an alignment between our intention and the mindset, between our words of mouth and the actions or the conducts of our hands. So this sidq, the violation of sidq can be verbal or non-verbal. The verbal sidq, the violation of sidq is very straightforward. So for example, exaggeration, right? We have some truthful fact, but we are exaggerating. We are exaggerating or manipulating the customer, for example. Then plagiarism. We are using others' words or others' stuff without properly referring to it. Then empty promises. Right? If you can go to the Code of Ethics for detailed definitions, I will not be going through it because of the shortage of time. Then putting words in someone else's mouth, opining without knowledge, rumor mongering, spreading rumor is also a violation of sidq. Then generalizing, so oversimplifying or over generalizing is also a violation of SIRK. Then we have few non-verbal violations. For example, unfair discrimination, racism, stereotyping, hypocrisy. So the mind and heart, or the intention and the words are not consistent. So that's what hypocrisy is. Misrepresentation, mis-selling, then lack of transparency, evil assumption of others, which is very, very important violation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Al-Quran in Surah Hujurat, he mentions, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ijtanibu kathiran min az-zann. Be aware of most of the zon or assumptions. So evil assumption of others is also a violation of sidq. And then scapegoating, blaming. So it's like a blame game, blaming other colleagues for things. So that's a violation of not only sidq but also tawasi bil haq, which is engaging with others in a positive manner. So in AAOIFI Code of Ethics, one thing I like very much is that you will see a lot of checkposts. There are several checkposts. For example, this checkpost is under SIFC when they discuss about misrepresentation. What does checkpost mean? It's like a process flow. It's like a step-by-step diagram where you can see or you can justify either the decision or either the thing that we are talking about is a misrepresentation or not. So if you go through the checkpost, for example, is it a misrepresentation? How would we see? So firstly, we have to see if it's a representation of an existing or a non-existent. Then if an existing one, then was it intentional or was it unintentional? So there are few steps to check. I will not go through the details. You can later on refer to the Code of Ethics. Another example of a checkpost in AAOIFI Code of Ethics is what is mentioned under mis-selling. So how we know that it was a mis-selling or not? So you can check it was either was this suitable or not suitable, was there any compromise or not. So once you go through the final step, you can see it is a mis-selling or not mis-selling. Those are very, very useful when it comes to self-governance or self-accountability, and also in terms of implementing the code into our governance structure, and to see or to really judge if it was a mis-selling, if it was a violation of the Code of Ethics. So next one is amana. Again, I will be very brief on it, and the text, as you can see, is very, very small here because we want it to be very compact, because the Code of Ethics really details those, and we don't want to have this detailed discussion here. So in broad manner, amana would be firstly dealing with either human beings or resources. So the violations of amana could be with the human being, which is number one categorized as staffs. So under the staff would be lack of empowerment, then dehumanizing treatment, destroying the work-life balance, or maybe triangulation or manipulation or conflict of interest and all those things. Then there will be avoiding harassment, which are basically violence, abuse, or immodesty. Then there will be resources, amana with the resources, which to me is very, very important part of this entire Code of Ethics. So as I mentioned, we have few resources in our disposal. For example, we have assets of the company, assets of the Islamic Finance Institution. So there are few violations mentioned under the assets. For example, are we doing israf? Israf means we are overspending, or we are misusing, we are misappropriation, then even bribery. Okay, making a bribery to someone or to a stakeholder or whatever. Then in information, violation of amana in terms of information. For example, blackmailing with someone's information, invasion of someone's privacy, then insider trading, or even backbiting. Even backbiting is also considered a violation of amana in terms of information. Then intellectual property is about data, is about the software, it is about the system that we are using, how we are managing the passwords, the information at our disposal, how we are safeguarding it. Then the responsibility and power. So we have responsibility for certain tasks to do, so some certain job roles to perform. Are we giving up to that level of responsibility or the commitment that we have given? So that's where are we taking proper decisions, etc. So this is where AAOIFI would detail the different violations. And finally, ecology and environment. So are we mindful of the environment that we are are we making a lot of wastage of the resources, of the environmental resources that we have? So all those things mentioned inside this are actually the details of violations of amana. If you go to the Code of Ethics, we can see the details, inshallah. And again, as I mentioned, there would be few checkposts mentioned inside some violations. For example, this checkpost is about amana in terms of assets. Is it a bribery or not? It's a very interesting checkpost. We often have a very thin line to determine either it's a gift or a bribery. So often we would be seeing this as a gift, but it can be a bribery. Or we can see this as a bribery, but this can be a gift. So this is a wonderful checkpost, I would say, in the AAOIFI Code of Ethics, which would help us to determine either it was a gift or a bribery. Then there is another checkpost here, is on information, like how we see that if it was a violation of information as well. When will it be considered as a violation of information in terms of amana? Okay, so next is Quwa, and I will not be going into details because this is quite straightforward. I will just read out the first level subcategories. So the Quwa violation can be in terms of proficiency. Like for example, we have poor work output, improper record keeping, right? And then ineptitude or having lack of responsibility taking and all those things. Then there is violation in terms of compliance. So compliance with the regulatory body, compliance with the national or local laws and all those things, compliance with the entity level guidelines. And then there are personal and professional development, which would be in terms of knowledge, skills, and attitude. So there are several violations mentioned under those. I will not be repeating here. As I mentioned, the details are in the code, and we have already covered the definition of the Quwa when we discuss the virtues. And finally, we have Tawasi bil Haq, and Tawasi bil Haq mentions impatience, then failure failure to cooperate in investigations. If you remember, what is Tawasi bil Haq? Tawasi bil Haq is always to engage with others positively, in a positive manner, right? So anything that is here, then unethical, selfishness, indifference, I will not be detailing it here. You can go back and refer to the Code of Ethics. So those are the violations that are discussed in part B. Then in part C is all about ideals, all about ihsan. How would you ensure that you are achieving the level of ihsan? Because remember, in the very beginning we mentioned that ethics is to uphold adl, and adl can be upheld by trying to achieve ihsan. And if you fall below adl, then it's a zulm. Now, what is ihsan in terms of taqwa? What is ihsan in terms of tawakkul? What is ihsan in terms of sidq? So we brought a few key points here, but this is not all. Of course, you have to go back to the Code of Ethics and read the details. So for example, in taqwa, we have to ensure that we are ensuring moderation and balance, keep good company, do tawbah or repentance whenever we are indulged into any sinful act. In tawakkul, the ideals are always to preserve Sharia authenticity, be hopeful and positive, don't give up. Okay, be consistent, and then resist bias for immediate rewards. Don't be racist. And then in sidq, we will have the ideals would be always to communicate the intentions clearly. Don't just have things inside different than what you are saying in your mouth or what you are performing in actions. So always be communicating intentions clearly. If things are different inside, just speak up, of course, in a positive manner. So that's again Tawasi bil Haq. We can never compromise on engaging in positively. We have to engage in a positive manner, but we can also not compromise keeping things inside. We have to speak up and we have to communicate intentions clearly. Be consciously aware of personal bias, very important, because when it comes to sidq, and we saw that there are some non-verbal bias, which is discrimination, which is being biased to someone or something or some zone or some country, whatever. So a continuous development for any IFP would be to be conscious of the personal bias that we have. Someone may have bias about white versus black. Someone may have bias about certain nationalities. Some would have bias about certain genders. So we have to be conscious about our bias. It's okay to have bias. Naturally, scientifically speaking, it's okay. But what not okay is to do discrimination, is to do violation of Sayyid Kamana, etc., based on the bias. So when we are conscious about the bias, that's where we will be taking the decision-making protocol that I explained before. So with that decision-making in protocol in place, we will be avoiding bias and we will be fair and just. We will be maintaining adl to everyone in every aspect of our professional life. Then make flexible and accommodating rules. Develop high tolerance of mistakes and keep the doors of criticism open. So this is specifically for the bosses. We cannot close the doors of criticism. We should be open to take criticism, because when we are closing the doors of criticism, this is where people will keep things inside the heart and communicate not clearly, not in a clear manner. So we have to empower them so that they can criticize the decisions, of course, again in a positive manner. Then the ideas for Amana is, of course, promote industry interests, share resources for the broader cause of Islamic finance. And there are a few other ideals as well. Please go back to the code. Then for Quwa, we always need to compete for excellence and righteousness, embrace responsibility, and view it as an opportunity. So as part of Quwa, as part of continuous development, we always need to look at things as an opportunity, not as an additional responsibility, and to lead and inspire others as well, and realize their potentials, especially when we are leading, teach others and share knowledge. So after we finish this Code of Ethics workshop today, inshallah, as Brother Farhan has mentioned, I would also mention, please go back and teach others, share with others. This is part of the Quwa as well. This is a part of developing your personal development, as well as contributing to others' development in terms of knowledge and skills. Then establish a diverse personal panel of mentors to seek advice. This is very, very important. I come from a very traditional religious school last time to graduate from Sharia, and our ustaz, our teachers always have emphasized on this, that we have to have mentors who are salihin, who are righteous, who are pious, so that we can seek advice from them. Because in life, when we are putting everything to ourselves and we are not consulting with others, we just not put the entire industry on danger, but rather we are putting ourselves on the danger as well. We may become victims of shaitan, for example. So we may end up making decisions without proper due diligence. So this is where mentors will really help. Even if you are an entrepreneur, you can have mentors. If you are in a professional career, you can also have mentors as well. Then systematically observe and analyze oneself to identify areas of improvement. So this is where always comes the muhasaba, self-accountability of my ability. There is a famous saying by Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph of Islam. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, "Hasibu qabla an tuhasabu." Account yourself before you are held accountable during the day of judgment. So when we are accounting ourselves, we are looking back into our own disabilities, our own shortcomings. This is where we know where we have the opportunity to learn. But when we have the ego, when we have the self-confidence, overconfidence that we don't have to develop ourselves, this is where shaitan would also see the way and make ourselves go to the unethical way. And finally, the ideals for tawasi bil haq is to appreciate others' perspectives and have a genuine care for others. So when we are indulging with others, when we are engaging with others, to engage in a positive manner, of course, we have to put ourselves in their shoes. We have to understand how they see the things. We have to understand their perspectives. So when we understand, when we give it, this is where it comes for us to engage positively. Otherwise, we will always end up in a negative manner, which is not only a good exercise, but also unethical according to AAOIFI Code of Ethics. Then, of course, share expertise and take personal interest in others' success. So it's not only our self-interest, rather we see others' success as our success as well. When we have transitioned to that mindset, inshallah, we will see the Islamic finance industry has grown into multiple times. But if we always put our self-interest on top and see other success as not our success, and with enmities, this is where the whole industry will always sink. Be humble as a leader, as a colleague, as a subordinate. Always we have to be humble. Stand up for the truth, even if you fear negative consequences for one's own interests and those closely associated. This is very, very important. So AAOIFI Code of Ethics, end of the day, would empower you, me, and everyone as an IFP. Whenever we see things that are wrong, we have to speak up. Of course, we have to have that protocol in place, engage with others positive manner, but all those things, we just cannot be silent. This is, end of the day, the objective of AAOIFI Code of Ethics, to empower us for a better ethical environment. So don't be afraid. There are a lot of verses in Al-Quran Kareem where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned about the righteous people, about the salihin, about the awliyaullah, meaning the friends of Allah, that la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. They don't have fear in this world, and they will not have fear in the world hereafter as well. So whenever we are standing for the justice, of course, remember, there will be sometimes test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is also mentioned in the Quran. We will have test in terms of fear. We will have test in terms of rizq. We will have test in terms of life, in terms of our health. But that test will be very short per period. If we are able to overcome the test, of course, by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will see the abundance of rizq, inshallah, the abundance of happiness we are getting. There is another verse also where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Whoever fears Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him rizq from sources he have never imagined of. So this is the power of taqwa, tawakkul, and all those virtues that we have mentioned in AAOIFI Code of Ethics, alhamdulillah. So finally, we will have a very short 1 or 2 cases here. Before we conclude the session, I'm sure you are having few polls as well. Please always try to answer those polls so that it will enrich your understanding of the Code of Ethics, inshallah. So the first case we will have very quickly. I think I have taken a lot of time, so I will conclude, inshallah, in next few minutes. So let's say the bank's policy requires all employees to submit a feedback report twice a month. On your way back from your work, your colleague asked you whether you have submitted the report, and you have answered, I have not submitted my report for the last 2 years. And if the bank and its 3 managers is taking those reports seriously, they wouldn't have been fighting legal cases throughout the years, and their performance wouldn't be constantly declining. So meaning that I am given a responsibility, but I am just not upholding that responsibility because of something else. So that's the gist of this case. So what do you think this is a violation of? Is it a violation of insubordination, or lack of transparency, or backbiting? Insubordination meaning that we have not delegated it properly. Lack of transparency is meaning that we have not maintained transparency properly. And then backbiting, of course, backbiting, because backbiting is here because the person is also mentioning about the managers, right? So then next case, I will give the answer, inshallah, very short period, because we are in a rush a bit. It has become known to you, then this is more relevant to you, most of you, inshallah, that it has become known to you that the Murabaha transaction in the IFE you work at is faulty. It's not Sharia compliant, for example. And you raise the issue to the management. And after seeing no active responses to your first complaint, you decide just to quit your job and not waste more time. So how do you see this? Is it a violation of the code, as you have submitted to the difficulties and you have not tried your best? Or it is in conformity of the code, as you chose to preserve Sharia and you have given it more importance, right? And had trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will provide it for you? Or it's a violation of code as you have failed to make a change? How would you see these in terms of the discussion so far we have? So let's see the answer. For the first one, it is a violation of insubordination, because when we see that it hasn't been done, it should have been subordinated to someone, delegated to someone, so that it's done in proper manner. And also it's a violation of backbiting as well. We can go back to the Code of Ethics and see what are the check post of backbiting, but I will not go to details now. And for the second one, it's a violation of the code because we submitted to the difficulties. If you remember, for taqwa, we always have to try our best, exhausting all proper resources, and then leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here the key word is that the management is not responding, not seeing an active response. So we have to try our best and strive our best to make sure the management responses to my request. This is where only we can see that we have tried our best to achieve taqwa as the virtue. If we haven't done that, then it's a violation, because we have given up. We have given up, we have submitted to the difficulties. We will have difficulties, but we cannot submit to the difficulties. We have to do our part again and again and again until there is an outcome, either good or bad. When there is an outcome, of course, we are content, we are happy with the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us. So with that, inshallah, I will conclude the session today. Before we go to the Q&A, final words, what is the call to action after this session? 1 hour session or a bit more than 1 hour session. So as brother mentioned,
Brother Yusuf, yes. Can you hold?
Yes.
I think the pool, the question that you put as a pool, I think Fahad and Ahsan can confirm they are available as a pool. So would you like us to run the pool now or later?
Yeah, sure.
Fahad or Ahsan, can you upload the pool?
The poll have been shared in the chat, and then they can start polling if they want. They can do it at the Q&A session. They can do it after the Q&A session as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So, colleagues, the pool is shared. So we would like you to go. Well, brother Yusuf Sultan, you can continue.
Sure, thank you. So before we conclude, as I mentioned, the call to action, just to remind myself and everyone here, as Brother Farhan has also insisted on, first call to action is that make time to read and understand the whole AAOIFI Code of Ethics, because it is applicable to us. Either we are an, of course, if we are an IFP, Islamic Finance Professional, of course, it is applicable to us, especially since January 2021. But other than that as well, as a Muslim in all aspects of our life, it is a mandatory for us to uphold the level of adl. So the first call to action or first action item is make time to read and understand the whole AAOIFI Code of Ethics. You can just go to AAOIFI.com and you can download the Code of Ethics, or you can Google it, or maybe inshallah we can also send it in the email after the session. Second is, in your entity level, adopt it and announce adoption of the Code of Ethics. So as Brother Farhan mentioned, the TAIF has courageously mentioned that they are the first adopting AAOIFI Code of Ethics on its activities. Then we have another institution that I work with, Ethics, in Malaysia and Singapore. They also announced it. Another institution in Bangladesh, IFA Consultancy, they have also announced it. So there are several institutions coming forward. When we adopt it and when we make a PR out of it, this is where it encourages the entire industry to follow this Code of Ethics. And one of the most important things that are lacking in our industry is ethics. So we all need to take care about it and voice out so that it's well known. And then, of course, great training for your employees. If you are a decision maker at your IFI or firm, or if you have the link to the decision maker, please take steps so that trainings are being made. You yourself can conduct trainings, conduct learning sessions, or even dialogues on the Code of Ethics. You spend times on explaining the Code of Ethics to the employees, to the colleagues, and I found it very useful, not only in the context of IFI, but in context of any other day-to-day activities that we have, even in the family life. So it's a very good practice that we try to uphold this Code of Ethics. See, one thing for an IFI is for an IFP, it's not only and something that we have to implement in the professional manner in the office, but also in our personal life, because as we saw that taqwa, tawakkul, all those things as related to our personal life as well. So it's best to try to implement that in our family life as well. Then lobby for its adoption. Keep the discussion alive on social media, as Brother Farhan has also insisted on. So we should be, after today's session, please express how you felt with the Code of Ethics, share with others, this social media has such a power, mashallah. It's a great blessing for us. And for any blessing, there is a rule that وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. When we express gratitude for it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases it in multiple times. And the way to express gratitude for any blessing is to make the best use of it. So let's make the best use of social media by spreading the good words, the good things that we learn about, and Code of Ethics is definitely one of those. And finally, implement the Code of Ethics at your personal and firm level. By implementation means that it has to be attached with reward and punishment. So if there is a violation, it should be escalated, it should be taken care of properly. If person maintains ethics, then it should be rewarded. And with that, the implementation part comes in, inshallah. So with that, I would conclude the session today. I know I have spoke a lot, but it was a very compact session, and we tried to deliver as brief as we can. But of course, inshallah, when we go back and look at the detailed Code of Ethics, inshallah, it will make much more sense, inshallah. So with that, I will pass to you, Brother Ihsan, for the Q&A. Thank you so much.
This is Fahad before Brother Ihsan joined with your ijazah. Sheikh, I have also shared on the chat window the commitment of IEP Code of Conduct. So
Brother Fahad, your voice is a bit not clear. Yeah. Can you speak a bit louder? Brother Fahad?
Sure. Brother Fahad is trying to speak a little bit louder. However, he's trying to say that he have shared in the chat about the polls, and it's not with the Zoom, it's separately in the poll. So in the chat, you can announce to the participant that they can go to the chat and then they can poll respectively.
Inshallah, inshallah. Sure.
We'll be taking.
Yeah, there is like beside the poll, what Fahad was trying to highlight is that, as Sheikh, you have mentioned that we need to commit to these values. This is the first thing that we need to do, is to make sure, and this is what is Shahada, that we start with the commitment that we commit ourselves to these values, and these values are, as Sister Asma very rightly highlighted in the chat, that these values are not only relating to Islamic banking and finance, although they are more critical and more important there, but they are applicable to all businesses. And as you, Sheikh, very rightly mentioned, they are applicable to personal as well as professional life. And professional life, irrespective of the industry, it is applicable everywhere. So the first thing that we need to do, organizations including TAIF, we are happy and proud to be among the first one to do it. And I would like and request the participants of this webinar to be also among the first ones to commit to this Code of Ethics, which is the guidance of Sharia, which is the guidance of Quran and Sunnah, which is the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the source of this is like the ideas mentioned in Quran and Sunnah. So what we request that the participants who have actually, all the viewers who have participated in this webinar, to kindly go to the chat, and there is a commitment form, and I would request humbly to be the first one to commit to this. The people of this gathering should be the first one to commit to this Code of Ethics. And then the commitment says that we will make our best effort to actually follow it, and best effort to actually request you to fill that commitment as well and be the first one to commit to this Code of Ethics. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair. You have a great stamina, mashallah. I must say, continuously you covered so many things and so many topics in such a short time. And so thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and like your effort. May Allah bless you and may Allah reward you in abundance. And I also want to thank again Brother Farhan Noor, for despite his, he was not feeling well and we were not sure whether he will be able to attend or not. He made it a point to actually attend, and he actually supported us a lot in the activities. I also want to take this opportunity before I move to the question and answer to thank our translators, Brother Umar Rafiq from Pakistan, for translating in Urdu, Brother Reda Mahmood from Egypt in translating in Arabic, Brother Ilyas Hussain, who was translating in Bangla, is based in Bangladesh, and Pak Sudar Mawan. He was translating us for in Indonesian Bhasha from Indonesia. So Alhamdulillah, like another reflection of the diversity and the unity of Ummah. This is the beauty of the Ummah, that we have like colors, flowers of every color in this bouquet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gathered in this bouquet of Iman, all of us together. Alhamdulillah, and thank you very much,